Hepiniz hoş geldiniz. Hazır mısınız gençler? Chat. Hepiniz HackerConf konferansına hoş geldiniz. 1 Mayıs'ta duyurduğumuz ve Twitch üzerinde organize etmeyi planladığımız bu etkinlik şimdiden beni heyecanlara sarmış durumda. Bakalım, olabildiğince tüm hazırlıkları gerçekleştirdik. An itibariyle zaten Keynote Speaker'ımız Chloé burada. Birazdan sözü ona vereceğim ama vermeden önce birazcık chat'e bakmak istiyorum. Çoktan hype train'imiz level 3 olmuş. Biz hazırız, siz hazır mısınız diyor arkadaşlar. Süper, harika. Valla ben hazırım. Biraz uykusuzum. Çünkü hayatımda ilk defa bir konferans organize ediyorum ve olabildiğince detayları düşünüp planlamaya çalıştım. Ama herhangi bir problem olabilir. Murphy kanunlarıdır. O nedenle dostlarım, bakalım neler yaşanacak. Kısa birkaç bilgilendirme yapacağım sizlere. Birincisi, her sunumdan sonra sunum biter bitmez sağ üstte bir tane anket göreceksiniz sunumla ilgili. Bu anketle ilgili hızlıca oy kullanabilirsiniz. An itibariyle izleyip Twitch'te üyelik açmadan izleyen dostlarımızın açması gerekecek chat'e yazmak için. Çünkü bugün çok sık chat kullanacağız. Yaklaşık 8 tane çekilişimiz var. Durumlar böyle. Şimdi bu konferansa özellikle sponsorların ve topluluğun desteği çok büyük. Bunlara teşekkür ediyorum. Hani destek olan herkese teşekkür ediyorum. HackerConf.stream adresinde an itibariyle şeyi görebilirsiniz. Konuşma sırası nasıl olacak, kimler nasıl konuşacak diye, hangi sırayla konuşma olacak. Konuşmaların ortasında da sponsor muhabbetimiz diye bir alan var. Bu alanda da yarım saat boyunca sponsor olan arkadaşlarımız, firmalardan gelen birer tane arkadaşımızla birlikte güzel bir muhabbet çevireceğiz. O nedenle açılış konuşması ile günü başlatmak istiyorum. Daha fazla tutmaya çalışmayacağım hikayeyi. Hızlı ve seri ilerliyor olacağız. O nedenle arkadaşlar, hepinizin alkışları ile, ki alkış dediğimde chat claps yazıyor an itibariyle, açılış konuşmasını yapmak üzere Chloé'yi davet edeceğim. Chloé, can you hear me?
Perfectly clear, except I didn't know a single word you said, except for my name. Hi, everyone.
Nice. That's the keyword you must
for
listen.
the intro. I hope it was nice. I don't know. But I'm going to go with my gut. It was something nice.
Yeah. So let me do the quick voice check. Guys, can you hear Chloé's voice? And I'm going to repeat that in Turkish as well. Chloé'nin sesini güzel duyabiliyor musunuz? Bunun için +1 yazın dostlarım. Chat'te bol bol +1 yazacaksınız. Okay, I got the confirmation that your voice is loud and clear, and perfect. I'm not gonna do any introduction about you, and you are on the stage. Let's go.
Let's do this. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Chloé Messdaghi, and I'm going to talk a little bit about hacker rights. I'm going to turn off my camera while I do my slides so I can focus on the slides and the whole thing that we really need to focus on, which is getting rights and how we're going to do it. I promise I'll put my camera back on to do Q&A. So let's get going on this. All right. Bear with me 1 second, you guys. All right. Can everyone see my screen?
I can't. Just give me 1 second.
Okay.
It is coming. Yes, we see we need right screen.
Yeah.
Great.
Woo. Excellent. All right, awesome. Let's do this.
Let's go.
All right. Hi, everyone. Once again, my name is Chloé Messdaghi. I'm the VP of Strategy over at Point Through Security, but I'm also an ethical hacker advocate. What does that mean exactly? I fight for rights and making sure that people don't get prosecuted when they're trying to disclose something that is needed to be disclosed. That also means making sure that those that are underrepresented in our field get an opportunity that is equal to anyone else who's overrepresented. I'm also the president and co-founder of Women of Security, also known as WOSEC. We do have chapters all over the world. I'm also the founder of Women Hackers, which is a virtual, I would say, platform where non-binary and women hack at all levels together. And we do have a conference coming up on the 6th and 7th of June, and the CFP is still open. We're looking for talks and workshops. I'm also a podcaster for ITSP magazine, The Uncommon Journey, with Alyssa Miller and Phil Wiley, where we talk about all these people that you tend to follow on Twitter, their road into InfoSec and the lessons learned. But I also run the Hacker Book Club. We basically read books written by hackers, and the hacker community reads them all together every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific time. Feel free to follow me on Twitter and Instagram. I do share quite a bit now these days. All right, now let's keep going into the real stuff. So we're going to dive a little bit on the current landscape. What does that look like around the world? And then why are we so scared in particular? And then how are we going to influence the public? So that means the role that the media plays. And by media, that means marketing, that means press, also what organizations play. And organizations could be anything from a for-profit or nonprofit. It could also be a government as well. Legislation, and then what are the next steps? And yes, that is my pup Sherlock when she was about 3.5 months old, and now she's fully grown and such a troublemaker, but still love her. So let's dive into the current landscape. I know this is scary, but let's dive in it together. So, I mean, I would ask this question, raise your hand, but let's just pretend you guys are raising your hand behind the screen. If the Equifax breach impacted you, because there's something really interesting about this case, and I really want to just dive into it really fast, is that did you know that a security researcher warned Equifax that it was vulnerable to a kind of attack that later compromised the personal data of more than 147 million Americans? And Motherboard has learned that 6 months after the researcher first notified the company about the vulnerability, Equifax patched it, but only after the massive breach that made headlines had already taken place, according to Equifax's own timeline. And this is not the only case where this happens. For example, we also have Capital One, but this time they actually took it seriously, and they didn't wait for 6 months for something to happen. Instead of the Capital One situation is that according to the federal complaint, the breach actually took place in stages across March and April of 2019, but Capital One only became aware of the problem on July 17th when a security researcher tipped the company to a public GitHub page that was displaying something that looked an awful like private Capital One data. But overall, these two cases, let's just imagine that no one actually reported this at all. Because in reality of it, the reason that we have so many breaches around the world is because 60% of security researchers do not report vulnerabilities. And this is due to the fear of prosecution. The statistic was discovered by the hard work of Meet Al-Azari, who you see at the corner there, who noticed our laws were preventing good hackers from doing what they do best, protecting you and me and everyone we love. And she has been spearheading this movement towards a safe harbor. So why are hackers scared? Why are you and I scared? Well, besides prosecution and looking for contact information, like, sometimes it takes days, sometimes it takes weeks, and then you give up. Or reading policies have just been a burden to report vulnerabilities. And even if we do it the way we're supposed to do, we still have to worry about being prosecuted. And this is the most frustrating and ridiculous thing. I don't know if you guys have heard about this case, but let's dive into this one. So if you see in this picture, this is Kevin. So he contacted DJI, which is a drone manufacturer. They actually recently launched a bug bounty program at the time. And it was him and one other person that basically wanted to start using this program. So for the scope, the bug bounty program covers all security issues in firmware, application, servers, including source code leak, security workaround, and privacy issue. They were working on a detailed user guide for it, and he confirmed ahead of time about the scope, but it took them 2 weeks to finally confirm the scope by email. So once he realized that it is, he got the confirmation, he reported the vulnerability, and he was provided with $30,000 for the fine. However, the agreement of receiving the funds offered no legal protection for him. So he walked away. The revelations resulted in the company challenging the researchers' finding and seemingly threatening one with a lawsuit tied to the Computer Fraud Abuse Act, claiming he went out of scope, regardless of the fact he made sure to confirm the scope. So in return, he actually posted the entire situation with all the conversations with DJI publicly. And by the way, one of those is the most embarrassing thing. So what happened in this email he got from them, it seemed very innocent. But then if you scroll down, apparently someone forgot that underneath there had some internal conversations about him rejecting the money. And basically they were saying that he is a threat to them for their PR and they need to sue him, that they need to get rid of him. And he didn't respond to that. He didn't say anything about that, but he did publish it on his blog post, which is really fun. So if you have some time to read something, this is a great case. Anyway, he turned out to be okay, by the way, at the end. But overall, community consensus is that we're all kind of afraid of each other, right? We're afraid to work with the government. We're kind of afraid to work with managers when it comes to if they have a bug bounty program or a vulnerability disclosure program or a security team email address out there. People are scared because everything seems so unclear. But in reality of it, everyone is just kind of in a situation where something needs to be done about it. Because think about it this way, language and what is in scope and or out of scope when disclosing or how do I disclose can be so scary, and potentially indictments especially. It can keep all parties awake at night. And I know it does for me. I'll tell you that the first time for sure. And I'm pretty sure you probably got that way because let's be real, even though, if you're a hacker and whatnot, you're going to be dealing with this all the time. And not just that, but the program managers, they're kind of worried about asking to be hacked, but not get hacked badly. And they don't really know how to conduct or handle situations when hackers report something sometimes. And this is why one of the reasons why so many companies don't want to have a vulnerability disclosure program, or they don't want to list the security email address for reporting something if you find something. And I know this is a scary subject, and I know it's like really early in the morning for you guys, but let's be real. It's something that we need to talk about. But like I said, this is a scary subject, so here's some puppies to lift your spirits. And I did place a cat for cat lovers as well, because you know how much I feel about inclusion, right? Okay. But let's go back into this conversation. So why are they scared of us? And who exactly I'm talking about? I'm talking about the public. So anyone who isn't a hacker, why are they scared of us? Even though ethical hackers are not malicious actors, they're still being seen and treated as such. And because of this, it reduces the chance of reporting a vulnerability that can cause hackers to go to the dark side because they're seen as the same. And then to the left is what we see when we're typing in criminal hackers, and to the right is ethical hackers. Once again, hoodies and darkness, and not that much of a difference. And it's not just the imagery, it's also the language used in media, such as seen in marketing and the press. Let's just say the media. So how does this imagery and language impact us? It basically continues to feed the fear of stereotypes and biases that exist through social construction. And if you're wondering what's social construction, I will share that with you. So social construction beliefs are, for example, when you were young, you were told that, spiders and snakes are something dangerous. So later on in your life, you will have this internal fear of spiders and snakes because of it. And that could have came from a parent, that could have came from a peer, it could have been from a teacher, but it's basically something that you were told and that you strongly believe. So that's a socially constructed belief. Now, socially constructed beliefs are stored within your temporal lobe. And within the temporal lobe, there's this one part which I want you to focus on. So see that green part on the brain? It's on the left side of the brain. Now, I want you to go to the limbic system next to it. The amygdala itself It's an almond-shaped section of nervous tissue located in the temporal side lobe of the brain, which is responsible for your emotions, your survival instincts, and memory. But just note, you cannot control it. Only the prefrontal can, because it is completely subconscious. So when you see a spider, you'll have a fight versus flight moment where do I kill it or do I run away from the spider? Or maybe not the spider, but maybe the snake. And that's just because you're reacting on a fear. And so I really want you guys to understand this part, because the reason that I'm saying this is that so much media out there has been portraying, and language has been portraying, that hackers are bad people, that they are criminals. And the problem is that's not actually true. They're just people that are curious, that are trying to save everyone online and offline. So the thing is that how do you change this belief system? And that's why we need to understand this fight versus flight mechanism, because it's a socially constructed idea that someone who is a hacker is someone dangerous. Thus, so when it sends the signal to the frontal lobe questions it, because it's the only time that you are consciously aware of a decision that you may make, which will be like, is this person actually a threat or are they not? And they'll pull other knowledge from videos to other things to see and clarify if this is the right action to take. And then it sends back the message to the amygdala either to calm down, it's not a threat, or it is a threat. So we need to understand that we can actually change people's beliefs. And how do we do that? Is by confronting them with information and sharing our stories, so then they change the way that they see us. They don't see us as this a criminal, and they don't think of us always with the black hoodie and a ski mask. I mean, really, ski mask is just ridiculous. Because what's happened because of this fear, we're seeing this mindset set by society, by people in the media, that's keeping us unsafe and preventing hackers what they do well. And companies are afraid of hackers and don't want to create vulnerability disclosure policies because of the lack of a bilateral trust amongst hackers and organizations and government. It's one of the reasons why 60% do not report vulnerabilities. And hackers are scared of the outdated laws, such as the CFA and DMCA in the US. But don't worry, I'll go into a little bit further on that front. Also, for the last couple of years, I've been interviewing plenty of black hat hackers, and one of the reasons they decided to move away from ethical hacking is the pay and the constant worrying of being prosecuted regardless if they did something legal. And this is also said by those who switched from being a black hat hacker to an ethical hacker. And the reason they switched was the insomnia of being arrested, because there are cases when organizations prosecute ethical hackers regardless if they were in scope, as we noted before. So, which leads us to needing to dive into current legislation that can be found in most countries towards hackers. So pretty much all countries have anti-hacking laws, anti-circumvention laws, acceptable use policy. So for anti-hacking laws, what are they exactly? It's basically a law that prohibits accessing a computer without authorization or in excess of authorization. And it's also to be used when a researcher goes out of scope. This is the act used to prosecute hacking. If you're familiar with CFAA, which is the US one, it actually was created from Ronald Reagan when he watched war games. He completely freaked out about hackers and was like, we need to do this. We need to have some anti-hacking laws, because it's very scary of the possibilities. Now, anti-circumvention laws, these are the right to repair. So reverse engineering is seen as a breach of property to some companies. Now, I want to go into acceptable use policy. Now, who here has ever read the terms and conditions for an Apple product, let's just say? Okay, I'll be real. I tried it. I got very bored, so I decided to watch a movie instead. But in general, they can be long and too much verbiage, and it can confuse anyone, especially if English is not their first language. And also, let's be real. Sometimes you need to be an attorney to understand the loopholes that are throughout it. And this is leading to some serious miscommunication issues for ethical hackers that don't really speak English 100%. And overall, what this slide is trying to share with you is that there are so many laws out there that are out of date, and they were created out of fear and not empathy by taking the time to understand what is needed and why laws should only prosecute malicious actors, aka criminals, and not good hackers. Because overall, the laws right now are preventing good hacking in the same way they're preventing bad hacking. And we need good hacking more than ever before. We're still seeing attacks during COVID-19 at hospitals, at insurance companies, basically leaking a bunch of data out there of personal information and family information. And this is really scary because it's the time that we need to all come together and prevent this. And there are so many great organizations out there that are coming and forming to try to prevent such things from happening. But yet these laws are still there. So it's still a very scary activity to be involved in, but it is so needed at this time. Because with improvements to legislation, let's be real, we can change the previous slide, but in order to do that, we must dive into 3 categories in which we have touched on because they work together to bring about public change. So how do we get there? Well, it's broken down into 3 parts. Clearly, in order to have rights for hackers, we need to get the public on board. In order to do so, we need to dive into these 3 categories. We need to press to push for public to become aware. In other words, we need to change the language and imagery of a hacker and start to using cyber criminals for those who commit unethical hacking. Overall, really separate the 2. In order to help the press, organizations need to be on board with bilateral trust, with having vulnerability disclosure programs by showing they support hackers. The public changes their view in general. And lastly, to have organizations and public opinion to push and motivate Capitol Hill to get on board and update the current legislation that will protect ethical hackers. Overall, we will need all 3 of them to support hacker rights for it to become a reality. That means we need to go outside of our community and start talking to people, sharing our personal stories, our personal fears, and trying to show that we're not this black hooded figure with a ski mask. And so I broke this down into the 5 needs in order to do this. So overall, we need to push for awareness of ethical hackers. And these are the 5 needs to get there. Now, how we get there, I may need you. But overall, we need to see a change to our language and imagery and InfoSec. And basically that means we need to work with media because we need society to notice the everyday heroes. And we need organizations to have a vulnerability disclosure program so then we can reach out and not have to worry about being prosecuted. Because a vulnerability disclosure program, a correct one, would have a bilateral trust amongst it, that there would no be retribution in return. And we need representatives to update today's legislation. Now, when I said, how are we going to get there? I may need you. I want to share why. So the first step is getting this petition signed and spread everywhere. So this petition was created at the end of February, right after RSA conference in the USA. And this petition is also pinned on my Twitter feed. But basically what I need everyone to do is help spread this. We need to get over 1,000 signatures so then we can push for press to look at it, but also for government agencies to look at it, organizations to take it seriously. And this petition is actually broken down into 4 different parts. So the first part is we ask for organizations to implement policies that clearly define scope, what kind, if any, rewards, contact information, because, oh my God, can I just tell you how annoying it is to try to look for someone's address? It takes so much time that sometimes it's not even worth it. Not just that, but communicate updates on the submission. I want to know, did it get fixed or not? I want to know. And the extension of a bilateral trust to include non-retribution, because that is the key point of having a really, really good program that allows hackers to report something without having to worry. Now, for politicians, we need them to understand us. We need them to understand that there's cyber criminals and then there's hackers, and there's two different things. And we need their support to try to push forward new legislation or protective additions to current legislation that won't penalize them. And honestly, we only really need one government to start this, because it takes one government to set the other ones up to follow as well. And of course, I did have media in here because we need the media to stop portraying ethical hackers as malicious actors and change the imagery when reporting malicious acts of hacking, for them to refer to cyber criminals once again and not hackers. But I did put a line in here for the hacker community. We all need to stay within scope and especially not exploit. Because when you exploit, you have literally broken this trust with everyone. Because when one of us breaks it, then they don't want to work with us. Then we start seeing walls put around. And then we know that this fear never got changed. And it just reinforces that there's a need for that fear to be there presently. So we need to do whatever we can to represent each other. So the main takeaways of this entire talk, I hope, for you guys, is that we deserve protection and rights. Current imagery and language has been misleading the public, and we need to work together to change the public's perception by updating our legislation, media, and organizations, and also sign and share this petition. It doesn't have to be people in our community that signs it. It could be your friends and family. The whole part about that petition is for anyone in the public to agree with it. If they agree that we deserve rights, have them sign it. Also, check out disclose.io if you want to get a good idea of what companies may be a little bit more safe when reporting vulnerabilities, or at least listing their email addresses, what to expect when reporting. Do you get swag or do you get compensation? What's in scope, what's out of scope? You can find a good number of companies listed on disclose.io. And last but not least, feel free to share your takeaways from this talk. But I just want to tell you that most importantly, change starts with you and me. We have to look at ourselves and see, what am I doing that is making a positive and negative impact in our community and outside our community? And ask around, how can you make it better? Or even ask yourself, how can I be better? Because it's going to be up to all of us to make this happen. And so it just really, we need to look at each other and ourselves deeply to see, what do we need to do next? And lastly, thank you so much for existing, and thank you guys for having me on here. I will turn on my camera now at this point. But yeah.
Thank you very much, Chloé. It was beautiful and an awesome speech, and there was a lots of important messages. And thank you very much. You know, everyone on the chat claps you. You know, lots of congratulations I'm seeing in here right now. Let me tell you, guys, if you have any questions, you can fire your questions in the chat. If I manage to grab some of them, I'm gonna ask those questions to our keynote speaker. And right now we are also have the pool top of your chat. Right now the question is, how was the talk? And the options was OMG, so cool, and she was the boss. Those are the options.
Those are not biased responses at all. At all.
Yeah. Okay guys. Ya, herhangi bir sorunuz varsa şimdi sorun, ama İngilizce yazın. Ben Chloe'ye bunları soracağım. I'm waiting for the questions. Of course, people are asking, are you real hacker, etc. Those. She was the boss. I guess the pool contest is that, okay, she was the boss is winning by far right now.
Excellent. This is great news. I'm glad to know that I'm the boss at midnight over here.
And thank you very much for, there's a huge time differences, I know, and thank you very much. We got the one questions. How many ethical hacker advocates in the world currently?
I have no idea, to be honest.
Really?
I would think that all of us that are ethical hackers are advocates at the end of the day, because we're advocating for someone to fix something because we're worried about something. I think all of us are advocates to a certain extent.
Yeah. And another question is not to you. People are chatting with each others right now. I guess we don't have any questions, but people love the keynote speech, and thank you very much. And thank you.
Oh, you're most
much.
welcome. Thank you for having me. If anyone has any remaining questions, feel free to just DM me on Twitter or Instagram. I'm on either one, and my DMs are always open.
Yeah, also we are leaving this petition link in the chat so that everyone can go sign and share it. Okay, everyone says thank you, and we have lots of thank you from Turkey. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe.
See you. Bye bye.
All right, bye.
Evet arkadaşlarım, açılış konuşmamız